We're traveling through the Psalm. For all our guests, we're traveling through the Psalms. And today we find ourselves parked on Psalm 13. Psalm 13. At closer glance, this psalm might not appear to be much, but there's a lot in these 6 verses of this psalm. As you able to stand, if you're not, we understand. If you look at this psalm, David writes it, and he's a man after God's own heart, but yet he still finds himself in difficult and lonely times. I'll be reading from the King James, and if you don't have your copy of the Bible, we have it on the screens, and you can read along with us. Psalm 13, verses 1 through 6, and the very first thing that David says, how long wilt thou forget me, O Lord, forever? How long wilt thou hide thy face from me? How long shall I take counsel in my soul, having sorrow in my heart daily? How long shall my enemies be exalted over me? Consider and hear me, O Lord my God. Lighten my eyes, lest I sleep the sleep of death. Lest my enemies say, I have prevailed against him. And those that trouble me rejoice when I am moved. But I have trusted in thy mercy. My heart shall rejoice in thy salvation. I will sing unto the Lord because he has dealt bountifully with me. You may be seated. The title of the song comes right from the first verse itself, and we want to use the title, How Long, God? How long? You know, I like old classic songs, and I want to bring them up to you, but that's by way of illustration. James Taylor says, in my mind, I'm going to Carolina. You can feel the sunshine. You can feel moonlight in my mind. The Bee Gees said, it's just emotion taking me over. Tied up in sorrow, lost in my soul. In this psalm, the emotions of David are running through his mind at light speed. Yet his emotions, like the sun breaking through on a cloudy day, has exposed the emotions of our own telltale heart. His words reveal to us his inner longings of the soul and his agony in the valley of despair. The weight of depression is pressing down upon him, and the patience of his heart is being slowly drained out like a tire that's pricked through with a nail. Then he cries, how long, O Lord, how long? In his cry, we hear our own cries. How long? How long will dark skies fill my life? How long will the joys of my heart be swallowed up with sorrows? Will the Lord cast off forever? If the foundations of the world, if the foundations be destroyed, what can the righteous do? Then the psalmist, he answers his own questions in Psalm 127, verses 1 through 4. He says, there he reveals the sustaining power of God. He says, I will lift up mine eyes unto the hills, from whence cometh my help. My help cometh from the Lord, which made heaven and earth. He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keepeth Israel, or he that keepeth thee, will not slumber. Behold, he that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. But the psalmist still goes on. How long, O Lord? You said I was a man after your own heart. You said if I serve you, that you'll be a good shepherd to me. You said in your words that you are able to do exceedingly abundantly above all I can ask or think. You said that if I trust you, that I can be the head and not the tail. You said that no weapon formed against me shall prosper. You said that the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. You said that you will open the door when I ask, and if I knock, and if I seek. You said all those things. And you said, even if I go through the very shadows of death, you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You said in your word, but I'm still trying to understand David's cry. How long, O Lord? For you have all power in heaven and earth, and you can change anything in an instant. You spoke and the universe came into existence. You walk on water. You open up the eyes of the blind. You open up the ears of the dumb and the mute. You open up the ears of the mute and the dumb speak. You raised Lazarus from the dead. You covered David in the lion's den. You caused the 3 Hebrew boys to walk out not smelling like smoke. Their clothes wasn't even burned up. But David says, how long? How long will I be in this situation? How long, Lord, will you keep me where I am? How long, Lord, would it be difficult in my life? How long will these people keep talking about me? How long will this nation be divided? How long, Lord, will people keep hating people and shooting people and killing people and doing wrong to people? How long, oh God? That's the cry of the psalmist. And that's the cry of God's people. The depths of our hearts overflow with sorrow, and all we can do sometimes is just lift up our hands to God and say, Lord, how long will my child act this way? How long will my daughter that I birthed, said the mother, don't look like me anymore, act like me anymore? We taught her better than that. And that boy of mine, I don't know who he belongs to, but Lord, how long? David is right there in the midst of how long. He's on a roller coaster ride. He knows that the Lord is a very present help in time of trouble. He knows in Psalm 116:12 that what do you render to God for all his benefits? You render praising him. He knows all of that. He knows that if you pray, God will hear. He knows all of that. But right now, David is having a pity party. Right now, David is depressed. Right now, David is going through some things in life. And if you would tell the truth, you've been there. You went through some things in life. And somebody told you that you didn't pray long enough. You said, I've been praying all night long. And my one question to God is this: how long? In the text. We'll see. 3 questions, and we'll let you go. These 3 questions that the text bring into our minds have crossed the mind of every saint that has lived, every saint that is living, and every saint that will live. The first question is God unrighteous in his remembrance? Is God unrighteous in his remembrance? Number 2, is God unrighteous in his retribution? Number 3, is God unrighteous in his rewards? As we move through the text and look at verse 1, the first thing that David says is, how long will thou forget me, O Lord? That's the first question. Then he says, forever. In other words, David said, is God unrighteous in his remembrance? That's the very first thing that David said, because David wanted to know about the God that he served. He says, surely God cannot forget me, can he? Notice something in the question, is God unrighteous in his remembrance? We see a tender complaint. Notice David is not shouting really loud. David is not boisterous. David is saying, how long, O Lord? Because David knows that when you cry out to God, a lot of times you don't have to shout. God can hear you. So David has a tender complaint. How long, O Lord, will you forget me? Forever? He feels as if God has forgotten about him. Have you felt that way? Like God has forgotten about you? He feels as God has forgotten about the rainbow. Remember in Genesis chapter 9, verses 11 through 16, God made a covenant to Noah, and God said, I will never, ever again destroy the earth with a flood. But David's saying, wait a minute, Lord, it feels like you're forgetting me. It feels like you're forgetting the rainbow. that your promise you made with Noah. It feels like you're forgetting the promises that you made to Abraham, that you would give him a seed. And you're forgetting the promises that you made to me. I'm a man after your own heart, Lord. It feels like you're forgetting about me. I come to church every Sunday. I sing in the choir. I pray for other people. I give my tithes. I sing, I shout, but it seems like you're forgetting about me. Lord, you know, it's me, the one that knocked on your door last night, the one that went to Sister So-and-so house when she was down, the one that went to Sister So-and-so's funeral when she went to glory. It's me, Lord. You know me. Don't you know me? I'm always trying to help somebody out, but it feels like now you have forgotten about little old me. David has a tender complaint. He feels like God has forgotten about him. In the big scheme of things, David isn't that great. Everything that he has, God gave to him. Everything that he hopes to be, God will make him be. But yet, God still says, he's my man. He's my man. His heart will never turn away from me. He is my man. But yet, God forgets about him, so he feels. So he feels. Can a mother forget about her child? Not too long. He feels that God has forgotten about him. You know what Job said? Let me show you this in Job 23, verse 2, as we move through the text. In the verses. Job says, I'm going to put my complaint right where it is. Job chapter 23, verses 1 through 2. Look at it. Then Job answered and said, even today is my complaint bitter. My stroke is heavier than my groanings. Job was going through some things. And some of them, Sister Hall, we go through some things. Deacon Hall, we go through some things. Sister Watkins, we go through some things. And Job is saying, listen, I'm laying my complaint before God, and the stuff that I'm going through is heavier than my groanings. Have you ever been through some things that have been so heavy that you couldn't even groan about it? All you could do is say, how long? Job says, I was there. David says, God has forgotten about me. He feels like God has forgotten about him. He also feels like God has forsaken him. Look at Psalm 27:10. Psalm 27:10. He says, when my father and my mother forsake me, then will the Lord take me up. God will never forsake you. Hebrews 13:5 says, let your conduct be without covetousness, and be content with such things as you have, for he said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. And see, God can't forsake us, because over 2,000 years ago, Jesus Christ died on the cross. And he cried out when he was on the cross, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Spurgeon said at that moment, Jesus Christ drifted into nowhere at the very back of God. He was forsaken so you and I don't have to be. God will never forsaken us. But David just feels like that because he's going through. And I'm telling you, sometimes when you're going through, you feel like God has forgotten about you. You feel like God has forsaken you. But I want you to know that God will never leave you nor forsake you. I want you to know that God is always there for you. He's always right by your side. You just feel like God has forsaken you. What was David going through? This is the problem. David couldn't see the house for the weeds. And a lot of times, you and I, we can't see the house for the weeds. When we go into a neighborhood and we see a house overdrawn with weeds, the first thing we say, look at that weeds in the ugly house. David couldn't see that God was working on something beautiful behind the pain. David couldn't see that God was working on something beautiful behind the disappointment. David couldn't see if you talk to Chip and join the games and the fixer-upper, they'll let you know that, hey, when I go see a house next in weeds, I see something beautiful behind the weeds. And so David couldn't see that God is working behind the scene to make his life stronger than it ever was. And so you may be going through, you may be having some difficult times, but God is working behind the weeds to make something beautiful in your life. All you got to do is just hold on just a little while longer, and God will reveal to you his masterpiece. God knows how to remove the weeds, clean up the yard, make you look like he wants you to look, make you talk like he wants you to talk, make you shout like he wants you to shout, make you love like he wants you to love. God knows how to remove the weeds, and then you can see the beauty of the house. And that's what God is doing when we're going through the trials and tribulations of life. And sometime when we're going through, we just have to say, how long, oh Lord, are you going to build this house? David, in that question, is God in rights to, in his remembrance, David says, there's a tender complaint, and then there's a terrible condition. Not only a tender complaint, but a terrible condition. He says, in verse 13, go back to Psalm 13, verse 1. He says, how long wilt thou hide thy face from me? That's a terrible condition, right? For David feels that God's presence is no longer with him. Have you ever felt that way? Man, I've been through some dark times. I've been through some zeroing times, and the light of God didn't seem like it was shining in my life. And all I could do with David, how long will you hide your face from me? And sometimes because of sin doesn't break the relationship, but it sure mess up the fellowship. And sometimes we don't feel like God is with us because of our sins. I'm not saying David has sinned here. David was being pursued by Saul, but yet David is saying, how long will you hide your face from me? Turn to Job 13:24. Because if I don't put you in the text, you won't get it. You think I made it up? Job chapter 13, verse 24. Job asked this question. Job was going through, and Job was saying, how long? And Job says, wherefore hidest thy face, and holdest me for thine enemy? He said, wherefore will you hide your face from me, and hold me as your enemy? And then look at Psalm 89, verse 46. Psalm 89, look at verse 46. There the songwriter says, how long, Lord, wilt thou hide thy face forever? Shall thy wrath burn like fire? Remember how short my time is. Wherefore hast thou made all men in vain? Why does man that he liveth and shall not see death? Shall he deliver his soul from the hand of the grave? He says, remember me. Why are you hiding your face from me? Lord, I've been praying to you. Lord, I've been meditating on your word. Sister Perkins, how long do you have to go through the pain that you're going through? Lord, I've been raising my grandkids, and I've been helping my husband, and I've been helping the children in the children's church, and it doesn't seem like anything's getting better for me. And Lord, I've been doing all that you asked me to do, and sometimes I do more than the pastor asked me to do, and sometimes I give more than my 10 and 13%. But Lord, you're turning your face from me, and it feels like I'm being burned up in the wrath of your anger. You've hidden your face from me. I could take it if you take me down to the grave, but don't hide your face from me. Don't keep your presence from me. Jesus cried on the cross, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Because Jesus says, God has removed his presence from me. I never felt that before because my father and I always won. The Father has never left me alone. But at that lonely moment, Jesus was all alone, bearing the sins of the world, bearing your sins and my sins on the cross. And sometimes you feel all alone, don't you? Nobody don't understand. My wife, my husband, my kids, the pastor, the deacons. Nobody understands. Is God unrighteous in his remembrance? What about number 2? He says it there. Is God unrighteous in his retribution? Go back to Psalm 13. It's right there in the text. He says, How long shall I take counsel in my soul, having sorrow in my heart daily? How long shall my enemies be exalted above me? Is God unrighteous in his retribution? The first thing you see in verse 3 is a prayer of consideration. He says, consider and hear me, O Lord my God. David says, listen, I need you to hear me now. He says, I've been really complaining and tend to complain, but I need you to consider me. In other words, the word consider means think about me. Lord, I know you created the universe, and I know you put the moon, and it does what you say do, and the stars do what they say do, and the sun does what you say do. He said, but consider, think about me. Think about what I'm going through. Think about how bad it is. Think about how difficult it is. He says, Lord, think about me. Think about me, Lord, in your business schedule of keeping the universe. God said it's nothing for me to keep the universe. And thinking about you is nothing for me either. What you need, I already prepared for you. But he says, think about me. Consider me, oh Lord. Look at the groanings. He says, oh Lord. And then he goes further, my God. David isn't talking about you now. David is talking about himself. And sometime when you're going through, you can say, oh Lord, my God. Why am I going through this? Oh, Lord, my God. Why is this so difficult? Oh, Lord, my God. How long will this be? Oh, Lord, my God, will you help me, please? That's what David said. David made this thing personal. He says, I'm not talking to you about your God. I'm just crying out to my God. How long will you? How long, Brother Small, will you be going the condition you're going in? And you've been singing in the choir and male chorus president for all these years, but yet you're still going through. And sometimes you got to say, oh, Lord, my God. It's me. It's me, oh, Lord. It's me, oh, Lord, standing in the need of prayer. There's a prayer for consideration. What does he pray for? That God will enlighten his eyes, that he will see that God is the fixer-upper of all broke-down houses. You're broke down, God can fix you up. You're lonely, God can give you what you need. You need peace, God can give it so to pass your understanding. You need joy, he'll give it to you that the world didn't give and the world can't take away. You need a job, God can open up doors for you because he owns the earth and the cattle on 1,000 hills is his. If you need whatever you need, God can give it to you. So David says, listen, I can't see it now, so enlighten my eyes. In other words, open my eyes so I can see. It's the same thing Jonathan said in 1 Samuel chapter 14, verse 29. When they say Saul won't do right, and Jonathan said, listen, Saul is just at enmity with you. But all he has to do is just taste the honey. Just taste the honey, and his eyes will be opened up. Jonathan was saying all he got to do is just taste and see how good God is. You see, when you're going through, remember how good God has been to you. When you're going through, remember how God delivered you the last time. When you're going through, remember how God stayed right there with you. When mother and father and friends and brothers and sisters and all those people forsook you, God was still right there with you. And so Jonathan says, all Saul has to do is just taste the honey. And when you're going through, remember the honey. Remember how sweet God is. He's sweeter than honey on the honeycomb. Just remember the honey. It won't always be like that. Honey tastes sweet to the lips. God, I'm feeling bitter and tasting bitter things right now, but the honey is on the way because God is in control of the bees, and bees bring out the honey, and eventually I'm going to taste some honey. I may be going through now, but God is going to bring me out, and he's going to set my feet on solid ground, and I'm going to tell you, I'm going to taste the honey. I don't know how long, but you hear the big, they're on the way. They're on the way. Look, man, y'all let me hurry up. To enlighten his eyes, and he says, least I sleep the sleep of death. He said, Lord, if you don't do it, I just feel like a dead man in the grave. Have you ever felt that way? Lord, sometimes you say, take me on home. You don't mean it, but you say it. You better be careful about saying, Lord, take me on home. Lord, if I just die, I'll be all right. Quit lying. I just thought I'd throw that in there. Quit lying. Y'all know y'all did it before. Lord, if Lord, this pain is so bad, just kill me. You don't want God to kill you. You just want him to heal you. You're just complaining. Yeah. Just be honest with yourself. Yes, sir. If God were to kill you, you'd be like, oh, I'm dead now. No, you won't even be thinking about it. That's a little jokey joke. Y'all can laugh a little bit, huh? All y'all looking at me so serious. Y'all like this is not in the Bible. Lighten my eyes, at least I sleep the sleep of death. Then he says, not only is there a prayer consideration, but also there's a plea for mercy. He said, listen now. He said, light my eyes, at least I sleep the sleep of death, lest my enemy say, I have prevailed against him. Then he says in verse 3, how long would I allow my enemy to rule over me? Lord, I need you to have mercy upon me, because if you don't do this thing, the enemy will rejoice in my shaking. When I'm shaken by the wind like a fig tree, the enemy will rejoice in that. So David says, Lord, have mercy upon me. He said, listen, that not only will they rejoice when I move, but they'll say, we prevailed against him. Lord, you helped me to kill Goliath. You helped me to slay a lion and a bear. And you're going to let these uncircumcised people get an upper hand on me? It's me, Lord. It's David. They didn't even bring me to the coronation, and you said I'll be the next king. They left me in there with the sheep. You sent somebody to go get me so they can anoint me. I'm the anointed king, Lord. It's me. This is my plea of mercy. David knew that God's mercy is new every morning. Some of you act like God doesn't give you new mercies. Let me give you one point and we'll move on. You know why I know that God gives us all new mercies? Because you're here right now. If it wasn't for God's mercy, you wouldn't be here right now. And that's why Lamentations says his mercies are new every morning. Great is his faithfulness. And because God is faithful, that's why you got up this morning. Because God is faithful, that's why you made it here safe today. Because God is faithful, that's why you have the job that you have, the cars that you drive, the house you live in, the food that you eat, the clothes on your back. That's why you have what you have. Because God's mercies are new every morning. Great is his faithfulness. That's why you have what you have. That's a plea for mercy. Psalm 4:1, he says, hear me when I call, O God of my righteousness. Thou hast enlarged me when I was in distress. Have mercy upon me and hear my prayer. These speak Terry, we got to get you guys out of here because we got to go preach. Let's move on. And so we see then, first is God and righteous in his remembrance. Will he forget about us? Will he forsake us? Is God and righteous in his retribution? Will he consider our prayers? Will he hear our plea of mercy? Won't God come and deliver us? Hasn't God delivered us? Hasn't God been good to us? Hasn't God done some great things in your life? I might not have $1 million, but what I have, nobody can take it from me because it's stored up in the heavens, and my anchor of the soul is sure and steadfast, and his name is Jesus Christ. And then finally, is God unrighteous in his rewards? You know what David does in these final two verses, verses 5 and 6? He moves us from, I try to preach without notes, but I had to write this down because it almost had me shouting by myself. I don't know where it's at, but I'll try to figure it out for y'all in my mind. In verses 5 and 6, David reverses some things. He moves from his roller coaster. Man, I got to find that paper. If I don't find it, y'all going to get mad at me because this is some good stuff. Nessa, you should have been playing a song while I've been trying to find it. See? You're not where you're supposed to be. You ain't helping a brother out. Oh, well. Oh, here, no. There. Okay. Well, here it is. She said, say for the afternoon. So look, in verses 5 and 6, he moves from how long to how great. Look what he says in verse 5. But I have trusted in thy mercy. This is a position of confidence. He says, I have trusted in your mercy. Your mercy is good. It's renewable. I trusted in it. Look at his position of confidence. He says, not only have I trust in your mercy, but he goes on to say, listen, my heart shall rejoice in your salvation. The word salvation doesn't mean save. It means deliver. He said, you have delivered me and you will deliver me. And look at my position of confidence. He says, I'm trusting you now. He moves from how long to how great. He moves there. He moves from maybe he will to my God is able. He moves from I can't see what God is doing until God is working on the building. He moves. You see how he moves? He moves now. He doesn't stay where he was. He doesn't stay in how long. He goes to God is great. He has to move now because God has slowly removed the weeds so he can see the house. And he moves from where he was to where he is now. And now he has a position of confidence. And isn't it just like the Christian? When God brings you through something, you can be confident that God will bring you out again. Why? He brought me out yesterday. He delivered me yesterday. He set me free yesterday. He opened doors yesterday. He was good to me yesterday. He'll be good to me today. And if I live tomorrow, he'll be good to me tomorrow. My position, I have confidence in God because God was good to me all my days. And therefore, I know I can go from how long to how great he is. How great is our God? David moves now. No more roller coaster. David is standing on a solid rock and he's saying, how great is God? Because I remember when I didn't have a dime in my pocket, he gave me food and fed me. And now look at what God has done for me. Now I have 2 cars in my garage. Not because I'm good, but because God is good. I don't say how long anymore. I just say how great is God. You see how he moves? Now he's moving now. He said, God got me where he wants me. Now he said, that's not enough. He says, now, not only is my position of confidence here, he says, but I have a praise of gratitude. That's what he said in verse 6. He says, listen now, I will sing unto the Lord because he has dealt bountifully. The word means generous. He says, every time I turn around, God keeps on blessing me. Every time I turn around, God keeps on opening doors for me. Every time I turn around, God just keeps on and 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 keeps on blessing me. Every time I turn around, God opening doors for me. How great is my God? And so he sings to the Lord a new song. And so, get off the roller coaster ride. Get on the solid rock. And then have praise of gratitude and say, not how long, but how great.